Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Welcome back to Just Relationships Part 2. If you listen to Part 1, you know that we are talking about solo aging. Yes, we all age if we're lucky, and we age alone, all of us in one way existentially. No one can die with us. And we're looking specifically at solo aging as a way of taking care of ourselves. And I am very, very happy to introduce back to you Sara Zeff Gerber, who is the author of Essential Retirement Planning for Solo Agers. And she is a Forbes consultant, and she is multi-award winning. And welcome back, Sara.
Thank you, Duffy. I'm happy to be back here.
And great, thank you. And so tell us how you got started. Tell us about you and your background.
Well, it's kind of interesting, actually, how I came at this. I was working as a management consultant and doing a lot of executive coaching back in the early 2000s, I would guess. And I was coaching a lot of people who were in the leading edge of the baby boomers. And I noticed that these high-level executives, both men and women, started to want to talk more about their retirement plans than their strategic plans and their business plans. So I was happy to go there with them. And then when I really looked at that, I thought, well, maybe people should be talking to a coach or a consultant about their retirement transition, because that's a very challenging thing for a lot of people. Traditionally, it's been much more challenging for men because they have put all of their energy and all of their selves, their identity into what they do for a living. And to a great extent, women are following in those footsteps now too. So that transition from being an attorney or a home builder or a doctor or whatever your profession might be, that transition from being that entity to whatever comes next is a very challenging one for a lot of people. And I started doing more retirement coaching at that point, which I found actually much more satisfying. I found people were really had a lot of energy behind talking about what am I going to do next? And somewhere along the line, I also started noticing that there were a lot of baby boomers taking care of their aging parents. And I think I mentioned this last week when you and I were talking. And as a person who doesn't have children, I asked myself at one point, who's going to do that for us? Who's going to run around and do my once I can't drive anymore, take me to doctor's appointments and pick up prescriptions and help me with my groceries and help me with the chores around the house and all of that kind of thing that I saw baby boomers doing for their parents. And I realized that there were probably a whole group of us out there that didn't have children that needed to plan in a different way. So that's when I started focusing all of my energies on investigating solo aging and coming up with ways that solo agers could plan for their later life, and not in a way that they weren't depending on anyone if they didn't have family to depend on. So there's a lot of things that we can all do to prepare for an older life, because an older life is going to be different. We're going to be the same people that we are today when we're 85, but we're not going to be able to do as many of the same things as we are today. So, and I realize that some of you listening may be 85 already, and looking back, that your life has changed. So a part of my job is to help baby boomers take their head out of the sand and realize that we're not all just going to be living a active, energetic life until one day we just keel over on the golf course. So we need to do some planning, whether we're solo agers or whether even if we do have family around, so that those people won't be burdened by our needs as we get older.
Beautiful. Just beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing your personal story. And more people exercise choice, and they do not have children. Either they don't choose to have children, or they can't have children, or, as we talked about in the last show, that they may be emotionally estranged and or living far away. So, and I'm really pleased to hear how you put that the executives were much more interested in talking about their retirement, which is, sociologically, we have a retirement, right, Sarah? We have a retirement. Talk about dropping dead. People used to drop as they were working, and women never reached menopause, and they died before their oldest children were of age, or their youngest children were of age. And now we have the so-called golden years, right? The idea of post-work life, per se. You've earned your livelihood. Hopefully you've invested well, or you save, or whatever you do. And we have some safety net in our society, not a lot, but we have something. So that it's so important, I think, for one's current life, no matter what the age, to be able to look forward into the future and feel good about it, right? Not feel scared about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when people starting to talk about estate planning with their family members or a living will, oh, no, we don't want to talk about that. It's ridiculous. Or even people saying, I need guardrails. Why? Well, for the future. But, what? But more and more people are using this kind of language, right? I want to have everything on the same floor. I want this what would you call appliance in the house, or something along those lines. Very, very practically. So what was there about retirement planning that you found more interesting than executive coaching?
I think I've always appreciated the opportunity to talk to people more about their personal lives than their business lives. I was just ready to do that myself. And being a boomer myself, I could relate to a lot of the things they were talking about. When I looked into what boomers really were interested in, I found that a lot of boomers are not interested in the kind of classic retirement that their parents had, where you spend much of your day in leisure activities. Now, granted, many of our parents didn't have as long a life as we are mostly going to have, those of us that are healthy enough to be able to enjoy a life into our 80s or 90s. But I don't run into too many people that want to spend 30 years of their life doing nothing, or just playing golf, or just hanging out, God forbid, just watching TV. Most boomers I've found who have been productive members of society and have had interesting work want to continue to either do that same work or retire from those jobs and do something that is more in the line of their conscience. They want to give back to their communities in some way, or they want to pursue a favorite cause. I have a number of examples of people I've worked with who have left their jobs, essentially classically retired from whatever their midlife profession was, and gone on to open a franchise somewhere. They've gone on to spend their lives organizing their local food bank or soup kitchen. They've gone on to work with animals. There's really kind of a whole other career waiting for people for 20 or 30 years in many cases. So the idea of a classic retirement like we hoped our parents had, it's not as appealing to most people. People want to find meaning and purpose to their lives, all their lives, not just up until they're 65.
Mm. So when you use the term classic retirement historically, you mean that people would basically not do much after they stopped working?
Right. We even had many professions had mandatory retirement age. Mandatory retirement lived on until sometime, I believe, in the 70s or early 80s, when it was essentially made illegal for employers to mandatorily make you mandatorily retire. Now, you still have to in certain professions, but those are few and far between. I mean, airline pilots still have to retire at a particular age. But most people can continue to do what they do as long as they want to do it, or as long as they need the money from doing it. And it's, this is all part of fighting against ageism as well. Accepting that people of all kinds, of all different ages, can do all different jobs and be involved in all kinds of different things. So it's not just solo agers that want to continue to have meaning and purpose in their lives. It's everyone. Now, a lot of people that have kids that live close to them and grandkids that they see all the time do want to spend a tremendous amount of time with the family. And they kind of, I look at that, some boomers who have already become what I call professional grandparents. They spend most of their lives babysitting those grandkids and helping their own kids out when they need the time to work. Especially during COVID, the blended families are working out well in a lot of situations. So, it's a very different world for the boomers today than it was for our parents, who may have had the goal of retiring and moving to a Sun City somewhere down in the Southwest, or moving to Florida for the rest of their lives. And granted, people still do that and people still enjoy it. But I've certainly learned over the last 10 years or so that I've been doing this work that it's different strokes for different folks. Some people want to do what they've been doing for a living for 30 years. They want to continue to do that until they absolutely can't anymore. And other people can't wait to leave their midlife jobs and move on to some other meaningful pursuit. That's a very personal thing.
Beautiful, beautiful. Sara Zeff Gerber, author of Essential Retirement Planning for Solo Agers, Forbes consultant, multi-award winning author and lecturer, and coach and consultant for solo agers. And right now, let's just say your contact information again, Sara Zeff Gerber, Sara, Z as in zebra, E, F as in Frank, F, Gerber, GEBER.com. And your book is available on Amazon.
It is. My book's available on Amazon, or more and more, it's available in libraries and through independent booksellers as well. And if you don't like to shop online for books, you can easily have your local bookseller order it for you if they don't have it in stock.
Beautiful. Essential Planning for Solo Agers by Sara Zeff Gerber, Geber. And I love how you sketch that out, Sara, the multi-variational way of retirement. And I'm thinking about Judi Dench and Helen Mirren, and they say the word retirement is not even in their vocabulary.
Yeah, absolutely. And good for them. I mean, they're two great examples of women who are really fighting ageism as well. And I think that we all have a responsibility to help our world combat the notion that people get too old to do things and to continue to work. And that's in many cases just nonsense. But on the other hand, aging does happen to us all. And being prepared for those later years is very important. And I kind of look at it like a three-legged stool, especially for solo agers. There's the financial side, and I recommend that everyone talk to a financial planner, a financial advisor, just to make sure that you're on the right track. You don't have to give your money to an institution to manage it for you if you want to manage your own retirement funds. Although, frankly, I wouldn't manage my own retirement funds. I like having a professional do that. But at least have one or two visits with a financial advisor to make sure you're on a trajectory that works and you're not going to run out of money when you're 90. Because many of us are going to live into our hundreds these days. So the financial is one leg of the stool. The other is legal. And it's important, it's just as important to have a life plan. And that means that we need to find our powers of attorney, people that will make decisions for us when we cannot, financial decisions. We also need to do our advance directive for healthcare, because at some point we may not be able to make a decision about what kind of treatment we're going to receive from the medical professionals. So those two elements they're not fun. They're not fun to think about. They're not fun to have to put together. But it's important for people to do that, to have a will and maybe a trust and have an advance directive, and for health purposes and also for legal purposes, having someone who can speak for you if you at some point cannot. And none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know whether we may become incapacitated at some point. And sometimes incapacitation is temporary and we regain our ability to make our own decisions, but sometimes it's not temporary. Sometimes it is permanent. And I know that these things are not fun to think about. They're not fun to plan for. But frankly, I think as human beings, we have a responsibility to plan for our own lives so that we don't end up making ourselves a burden on someone else. Or the worst that could happen is no planning at all might lead you to become a ward of the court. And then you're going to have someone who you've never met before in your life making decisions for you. And boy, I don't know about you, but I sure want to avoid that.
Absolutely.
So those are two of the legs of the stool. And the third leg of the stool is our social network, and making sure that we maintain and nurture our own social network, the people that we care about and the people that care about us. Never hurts to expand that. Some of us have our social network mainly through our families, and other people don't have as large a family or even close family, and in many cases, no family at all. So there's all kinds of situations that people are in. So everybody's living situation is going to be a little different, but looking around you and saying, who do I care about? Who do I want to make sure that I keep in relationship with throughout my life? That's an important assessment to make. And then to do what it takes to maintain that relationship, to continue to see those people, to continue to talk about what you want later in life, where you want to live, how you want to be treated. Those are important considerations, much as they may not seem like it if you're in your 50s listening to this show, or even in your 60s. But aging happens. It happens to all of us. And of course, the alternative is that we wouldn't be here. So those are just all things that I think people should begin to think about in the second half of their life.
Very, very well conceived, Sara Zeff Gerber. The three-legged stool of the financial piece, the legal piece, and the social piece. And I like how you put that we're all responsible, we're all responsive. And sometimes people may be bereft of family members and even friends who would have the ability, the prowess to do that. What about at a certain age to find people who could be legally responsible and not in the reactive ward of the court, but if you were to just say, okay, I know I need someone to take care of me who is reliable, who has integrity later on, is there anything like that that person can look into?
Sure. Well, the first thing that I think everyone needs to do is to take stock of who is around them, who's in your life, that you can begin to share your concerns, your goals, your health condition, and say, I think that we might make an agreement that we would watch out for one another. Now, a lot of people do that spontaneously. I've become a big fan of any kind of congregate living arrangement. As people grow older, I'm not a very big fan of people living alone in their homes that may be on a half acre and you just don't even see your neighbors. It's not a safe way to grow old. It's not a happy way to grow older. We need community around us. So if you already have a community around you, if for say you live in New York City and you live in an apartment that you've been in for 30 or 40 years, you probably have what I call a NORC, a naturally occurring retirement community. You talk to your neighbors, you know about one another. You know about one another's families, you know about one another's ailments, you know about one another's food preferences. You just get to know people on the basis of being friends. This also happens on the West Coast where I am when people move into more close-knit communities, often retirement communities. Sometimes I've become a big fan of mobile home parks because people tend to lead very communal lives. They have to go to the community center to get their mail and maybe to do their wash and collect their cars from the parking area. So people see one another much more than they do if they lived in the suburb. And that leads to more familiarity. You may not love everybody that lives around you. You may have a few select people that you're comfortable with, that you enjoy hanging out with. But the more you can share about yourselves and make these little, maybe starting with casual agreements and ending up making them actual legal agreements to take care of one another. Also important to have a mix of generations in that. So there's opportunities even in retirement communities to have a mix of generations, because these days retirement communities, as you probably know, are anyone from 55 and older. So you have a group of much younger people who are between 55 and 65, and then you have people who are a whole generation or even a generation and a half older than that living in the same community. So multi-generational living doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be living around people who are still raising kids, but it does mean that you may have people that are 15 or 20 years older or younger than you that you can support and that you can ask to help support you. And we all need support from time to time. I'm not talking about if you should have a stroke and need almost 24/7 care. That's a whole different category. But what if you need a knee replacement? Some of you listening to the show have probably already had a knee replacement or a hip replacement, and you know that you need some support to get through that for the first few days, or the first couple of weeks even. You need somebody to make food for you. You need someone to help you get in and out of bed. You need just a little bit more social support. So we all need support from time to time as we go through certain things in our lives. And that's the kind of support that I'm talking about.
That's so beautiful. And that is so in keeping with Just Relationships, where the whole show is devoted to the quality of relationships and looking at relationship building. Yes, we can definitely look at a legal arm. However, I often talk as a coach, counselor, teacher, as a psychotherapist myself about cultivating one's mentors, the care, I call it the care and feeding of mentors. And that's more kind of workplace sounding, but the idea of who is in my, I like how you put that, my world, my locale, who is around me, and can I not be age segregated, and can I relate to people younger than me? And what about cultivating caring? I also love the term you use, Sarah, congregate living, because I have been a proponent of communal living for decades. And there's a wonderful magazine. It may be called communal living, but it's not something that Americans mostly can relate to. And so using the term congregate living, I think, is much more palatable to people. You talk about we all need support of different kinds at different times. And as a social psychologist, I can tell you about how in America we're raised with individualism to the extreme. I call it toxic individualism, where we should take care of ourselves only. And if we need help, we are needy, and that's bad and wrong. And that we pledge self-sufficiency, that we're supposed to be, that's some sort of badge that we should be self-sufficient. I don't think that's possible. I think it's ridiculous. I would prefer using the term self-support, because if I am self-supporting, that means I also can access through my self-support the resources of my community. And I am very active, as you say, as you talk about proactive. The idea of living in some sort of extended family arrangement, and even looking at people as a chosen family. I actually had a sister ceremony with one of my friends. And to say, I consider you my chosen family. Sara Zeff Gerber, you have so much to contribute. Thank you for opening up this whole field. I love the term solo aging, congregate living, and you are on the internet. We can contact you through Sara Zeff, Zeff, Gerber, GEBER.com, Essential Retirement Planning for Solo Agers. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And what you said last week, the organization Silver Nest, to help with alternative living arrangements. So thank you for being such a wonderful guest, Sara.
Thank you, Duffy.
Welcome. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.